Perfect. So thank you everyone for joining today. My name is Cesar Rivas, and I am the National Sales Executive for Sound Payments. And one of the solutions that I represent is the Sound POS solution, which is what we're going to be talking about today. Now, the idea of these workshops, and they're going to be happening on a monthly basis, is that I provide ISOs and resellers with the knowledge to be able to position our POS system out there. Okay, I think any tools that we can provide everyone on the line will help us be more successful, and of course will help you be more successful. Now, the way that these workshops are going to be structured, they're going to be on the last Wednesday of every month. They're going to be 30 minutes or even shorter sometimes. And the idea is that the first 15 minutes of the workshop, or maybe less time, but the top 15 minutes, I introduced maybe a component, a type of store, a feature for the actual POS. And then the last 15 minutes, it's more of just an introduction, overall introduction for the POS, all right? So in reality, you're gonna have new content for only the first 15 minutes of these workshops from now until the end of the year. And really the second half is meant for anybody who's new to the Sound POS system. I'm not gonna open up during the session to questions and answers here. What I would rather do is, you'll see the last slide will have my contact information, my email address. So any questions you may have that come up during the session, please write them down and then just shoot me an email at the end and I'll try to respond them as quickly as possible. All right. So wanted to, one last thing also, these sessions are going to be recorded and they're going to be available on one of our resources named Sound Hub. And I'll talk about that a little bit later for the second half. So you're going to be able to access these, and if you need any reference or any information that you hear on here, or if you miss any one of these throughout the rest of the year, you'll be able to access these at any point in time and listen to them and watch them. All right. So for those of you who don't know who we are, okay, Sound Payments is located in Jacksonville, Florida, and we're an organization that develops value and innovation solutions, right? Innovative, and we want to make sure that they're also accessible from a price point of view. We're located in Jacksonville, Florida. We do have a second location in Tampa, actually St. Petersburg, Florida, where we do a lot of our R&D and some of the sales staff. And we also have some locations worldwide in terms of developers and things like that. We work with technology partners, primarily PAX for the time being, but we do work with a couple of other partners as well, and we're looking to expand. And we are definitely not an ISO, a gateway, or a processor. So you can rest assured, rest easy that there's not going to be any competition from our end. All right, we really want to provide you, the reseller or the ISO, with a solution that you're going to be able to market and sell out there. All right. So without further ado, just to give you an overview of what the POS provides, okay? As it says on the slide, it's definitely simple to use, very reliable, and you'll see some of the components that we provide, secure as well, and I think most importantly that it is fully customizable POS system for small and medium businesses. All right. Some of the features that the system provides are listed on here, so I want to go through them briefly so you're clear about that. The first feature has to do with inventory, and you're able to control inventory in many ways, but you're able to create products, categories, subcategories, and so forth. It's really very robust in the way that it maintains inventory, and the way that you feed the information is also actually very easy. One of the things that I hear a lot is in terms of that initial inventory upload, is that some of our competitors provide the ability for the merchant to send them the, let's say if it's a restaurant or anything like that, send them the menu and they upload it for them. But the challenge that we see with that process, with that strategy, is that the reseller or even the merchant don't have full control. They have to rely on somebody uploading it. And if it's not to their liking, then they're going to take, back and forth, which can take a little while. And especially for some merchants that, need to be up and running, that can be challenging. Also for some of the inventories that are uploaded, you're provided with an Excel spreadsheet to fill out and send again to the POS provider, and they got to go back and forth. So we provide the tools so that the merchant can upload their inventory using a template that we provide, but they can upload it themselves. So if they upload it and they don't like the way that it turned out, they can just scrap it and start all over again on their own. They're completely independent, so they don't need to rely on anybody else to do that upload. The second feature that it's listed on here has to do with employees and employee hour tracking primarily. All right. Definitely not a system that calculates payroll or anything like that. But it's actually a system that does track hours, does track breaks and things like that. It provides you with a barcode for each employee if you want to use a scanner to log in and so forth. And the nice thing is that the actual hours worked can be exported in Excel format, which almost any payroll software will be compatible with Excel. You'll be able to import the information and then calculate the payroll without having to manually input each hour or each number of hours for employee. The next feature listed on here has to do with customers. So the system does have the ability to maintain a customer database, all the personal information, including birth date. So it's great for customers, and I'll talk a little bit about the type of industries, but customers who maybe are purchasing an item that's age restricted. If you have them listed on the database, it'll already pre-fill that information for them. You can even take a picture of the customer, and you'll see that our terminals actually have a camera, so that when you create on the database, you can have a picture of the customer as a reference as well. Some of the other features that this customer function has are, for example, you can create an account and give credit and establish what that credit limit is, control that, make payments, and you can even create a loyalty points program and manage, how many points you receive per dollar purchased and how many points it takes to get make a cent or a 10 cent or $1 purchase, whatever that may be. When it comes to sales tax, again, fully customizable. You can create your different tax rates, and then you can combine those to create different categories. So you can have your standard, maybe there's a luxury tax, maybe there's any other kind of tax for the location. So again, fully customizable. It is a cloud-based POS, so that has also a huge advantage. For one part, all terminals are integrated or semi-integrated, I should say, with a payment terminal. Okay, so you've got the actual user terminal for the POS, and then you've got usually facing the client for almost all of our devices, a separate payment terminal, which is nice in terms of the interaction, because you don't have to turn it around or anything like that. The client is always looking at what's being rung up, and then they just fill or make the payment if they're going to use a credit or a debit card or anything like that directly on there. But the one thing I was going to say is that the payment terminal and the POS terminal are semi-integrated in the sense that all of the payment information remains in the actual payment terminal. It's not shared with the POS terminal. The POS only receives either the approval or the decline for the purchase, which makes it much more secure. The other thing is that because it's cloud-based and is constantly updating the information on the cloud, we provide, as you can see, one of the items there, a web portal. So you can access the information from anywhere pretty much. And I'll show you some of the screens later on. All right. The other thing is, and I know that with other POS systems, this could be a challenge in terms of the payment terminal connected to the actual POS terminal. And if they lose Wi-Fi or power or anything like that, to try to reconnect those two again to talk to each other can be cumbersome. Sometimes you have to turn on the servers or call a number so that they walk you through that. With our system, if they do lose connectivity in terms of the Wi-Fi, once they get that signal back up and running, boom, it's seamlessly connected. Okay. In terms of reports, you'll see there's a lot of reporting available. All or the majority of these reports can be exported once again in Excel, so the data can be manipulated. You also have the option to export some of these in PDF format. So if you want to create a report, make sure that nobody messes with the data and so forth. And you'll see there's just a very big range of reports with the system. All right. And then finally, I mentioned the web portal. So any merchant receives not just access to the POS or the terminal, but they can also access the POS remotely and do almost anything you would do on the terminal, with the exception of running an actual purchase, an actual sale. All right. All right. So as we move forward, just wanted to mention a little bit about the cloud-based POS. First of all, yes, we are certified to work with all major US processors, for data, TSYS, and so forth. Okay. As I mentioned, you can remotely and monitor the information that's going on in real time. You can actually set how often you want the terminal to connect to the cloud, starting at 5 minutes and increasing in intervals if you want. But the transaction data actually automatically updates every minute. So if you make changes to the inventory, pricing, and things like that, add somebody else new to the customer database, and you have it set for 5 minute synchronization, that'll be updated automatically. And it also has a function to update manually in case you need to update something immediately to take effect. But for the transaction itself, it happens every minute updating. And then the last thing that it mentions there is because it's cloud-based, first of all, you can actually manage the terminal remotely. Okay, just somebody needs to be there to accept. So in terms of technical support is very useful. And then the other thing is that being that sometimes you need to update the firmware, you can do it very easily remotely. All right. As you can see here, I've got on the left side the screens from two different. And then on the bottom, this is on a cell phone. So as I said, you can pretty much access all the information from anywhere. In terms of the devices, we've got a series of devices that we provide. Now, depending on what reseller you work with, they may have some or not. They're all PAX, but they're all Android based. They all have batteries. So the nice thing about that is if you lose power, you don't lose the transaction in the middle. They have dual cameras, so you can attach a scanner to most of them, but you can also use the cameras as a scanner. We've got units that are both countertop or portable as well. For the units that are countertop, they all have multiple peripheral ports. So they've got USB ports, they've got a cash drawer port, they've got a Ethernet port as well. And you can connect via Ethernet, Wi-Fi, 4G, 3G. So it's nice because if, you do lose connectivity to the Wi-Fi, and of course the terminal is on battery power, so it continues to run. If the person who's running the transaction has a cell phone, all they need to do is activate the hotspot, and they'll be able to continue to run the transaction. And then all the terminals, with the exception of one small portable one, they have dual terminal screens. As I mentioned at the beginning, you've got the user screen on one side, and then you've got the actual payment screen on the other. All right. Some of the target industries, this is not meant for a full service restaurant because it doesn't have any functions in terms of reservations, the dining room setup and all of that, but it does work for quick serve, fast food. It also works for storefront, like a butcher, ice cream parlor, and things like that. It works great. On the retail side, it works, in the garment industry, boutique, secondhand stores, shoe stores, any of that stuff. Grocery stores as well, mini mart, bodega, small grocers, and other retails. You got something like hardware, tires, party supply, beauty, all of that stuff. It works really great. All right. In terms of resources, we provide 24/7 merchant support if that's something that you need as well. There's something called the Sound Hub I mentioned, which is like one-stop shop, and that's where you're going to find these recordings as well. But we also have videos there that you can utilize to promote the devices, videos for you to learn about them as well, your user manuals, all of that stuff is located there. Yes, we provide, of course, all the app and firmware updates and upgrades. But they're usually controlled by the reseller that gets a PAX account to update that stuff. All right. We also provide advanced level support for resellers, and we have a very, very experienced implementation team. All right. So with that, I actually flipped it around today. Should have been the second part. You can see my information there. Again, please jot down my email address. I'll share it with you guys again at the end. But if you could please jot that down. So if you have any questions, you can send them to me. Responding them properly. All right. So we're going to switch over to some of the resources that are available here. All right. And really what I want to start talking about is the PAX Store. Now, mind you, if you're an ISO, you're probably not going to have access to this because usually the PAX Store is controlled by the reseller or the processor. But I wanted to show you anyway, just so you're aware of what resources are available for our POS system. All right. So the PAX Store, again, provides with the reseller, the ISO, and the merchant complete independence in terms of how they work. Okay. Go ahead and zoom out on this one here. Bear with me 1 second. Okay, so it's got multiple functionalities. I mean, you can actually see where a terminal is located. You've got geolocation. I've got a couple terminals assigned to me. So as you can see, I'm in Jacksonville, Florida right now. So that's great. It has the ability to activate or deactivate terminals here. All right, and you can also do it, and I'll show you in another screen as well. And as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be working today with the E700, which is the one that I'm going to be utilizing to demo some of the things here. Here you would be able to then do the upgrade, or your reseller would be able to push the upgrades for firmware and other software and so forth. All right, and one last thing is the ability to support remotely. You don't have to be physically at the merchant's location, as long as they have access to Wi-Fi, they connect their terminal to Wi-Fi, then you'll be able to manage the terminal remotely, as you can see here. All right, I'm just blowing it up a little bit so you can see this is the welcome screen for our POS. All right, up next, I wanted to show you the reseller website. Again, depending on the structure that you work under, all right, you may have or may not have access to this website. The reseller is where the new stores are created, where you can manage also devices once they've been activated within the PAX Store. Now these devices are going to be also under the e-commerce reseller website. So here I've got all the 2 devices that are assigned to me, and this can be utilized to switch between stores. And it's great because the data, because it's all backed up on the cloud, let's say that a retailer or a merchant has an issue, a hardware issue with a terminal, you don't lose all the data when you switch terminals. It's very easy. You go in here, and again, you may not do this. You go transfer device, and you choose what store that device is going to go to. Okay, we're not going to transfer anything now, but everything will load to that device as it was in the previous device without having to input anything on the terminal. So that's very useful. Also, if you're adding more terminals to a single location, same thing, you just add them on there and they're going to be automatically loaded with all the features you loaded in the first terminal as well. Okay. Some of the things that you do here on the reseller's website that you can't do on the actual merchant portal, and I'll show that to you in a minute. For example, setting up, let me go ahead and pull up my stores here. This is the store that we normally work with. So setting up if there's any type of cash discount that your reseller allows, some of the payment settings in terms of EBT or check acceptance, you control that here at the reseller level. This is the loyalty program I mentioned about. So this is where you activate it initially. If the store or the merchant sells anything that requires age verification, this is where you activate it as well. And again, it's under the control of the reseller rather than the actual merchant. Okay. Some of the other things you can do here as well. Well, as I said, you can do pretty much anything you would on the terminal itself. All right. So what I want to do next is show you what the merchant website looks like here. And I'm going to log into the Micromart. So again, the merchant doesn't see these two previous websites that I showed you. In some cases, some of you may not see them either, depending on the structure of the organization that you work for. You know, if you're an ISO who works for a reseller who wants to have centralized control, you may need to do everything through them in terms of activating devices on the PAX website, you know, doing any type of firmware upgrades and things like that. Oh, sorry about that. So this is where it happens for the merchant itself. Okay. And we'll show in some future sessions the initial upload that I mentioned to you, but I just wanted to show you here where you've got your catalogs, products are here. Okay. And this is where you can create your products. This is where you would import and so forth. All right. Also, I wanted to show you some of the reporting. There are some pre-established reports. Okay. Transactions, and this is really the one that's got the most reports, but you also have bestsellers. You have the ability to set a low stock number for your stock, your inventory. So it'll tell you when it goes below whatever number you established for each item. It tells you also what products were never purchased. And when you email these reports, if you email them to anybody, this will actually maintain track of who has received which report. All right. In terms of, wanted to show you some of the other reports are available under transactions. So here you would choose, or the merchant would choose their store in case they've got more than one store available. And then you've got a lot of fields where you can actually sort or select additional data if you want to be more specific about what you want to download. So you can choose, you know, how long. So we're going to go back a full month. Okay. You can choose categories if the store has all of their items divided into categories. And this is a Micromart. So as you can see, I've got a lot of stuff that's in terms of categories. You can even choose in terms of transactions what payment method was utilized. These are all the payment methods that I currently have activated on here as well. All right. And then when you actually look at export, and these are all Excel, of course, then you've got a whole slew of reports. So just want to show you a couple of these reports briefly. Okay. Let's look at the transaction details. So transaction details and then total so you can see the difference. Okay. So it downloads very quickly, as you can see here. And I know that my connection is so-so, but, and then you just open it up. And as I said, it's in Excel format. So you can really modify the data if you need to. Okay. Let me show you, this is a very detailed transaction. These are maybe some transactions where you have toppings for ice cream and things like that. So very, very detailed. If you don't need anything that's that detailed, then all you do is choose the transaction totals report. And again, it downloads on here, you open it up. And if you need to export it or anything like that, it's very easy, see? So now it just has one line per transaction. I want to show you on the inventory side, when we go to products, catalog products, you also have your inventory export here. Okay, so I choose my store. And then you can choose by category again, but I'm going to go ahead and export everything. And this is something we're going to see in the future, but I just wanted to show you what the inventory report looks like and how you can modify the data or manipulate the data so it's useful. All right, so in this case, I'm exporting everything. Now, you're going to see that there's some items on here that don't have a current stock number because these are items that don't require to maintain inventory. Okay, so like adding toppings and things like that. But again, because this is Excel, I chose to be able to edit this. You can actually input a filter in here. And now you can see only the items that actually have an inventory number, an amount number. Okay. And you will see later on, you know, you've got like the three different exercise T's because it has to do with the size and things like that. All right. All right. So with that, really that concludes my presentation for today. All right. I'm going to go ahead and put back my contact information Again, if you have any questions, please go ahead and email me the questions. I apologize. This is the first one. So I actually flipped the session where the first section really should have been last. And then I should have spoken about, the PAX website and the commerce solutions or website first. All right. So for our next session next month, you're going to be able to see shortly on the Sound Hub website what the contents are going to be. And again, the first half is going to be something new that we didn't talk about today. And the second half will be a replicate of what you heard today, the first half, which was my mistake. All right. So with that, thank you very much, everyone, for joining me. And looking forward to responding to your questions.